Hello friends, welcome to my YouTube channel. How we can identify quickly that a trait in pedigree is dominant or recessive. A dominant trait, or you can say in case of dominant trait, affected offspring. Affected offspring, or you can say affected son or daughter, will always have one of affected parent. So if this is offspring and these are its parent, so if this is affected, this offspring, then if that trait is dominant, then one of its parent must be affected. This trait will never transmitted from unaffected to unaffected parents to affected offspring. Means if parents are unaffected, then offspring will also be unaffected in case of dominant trait. So this always pass from affected parent to affected offspring. So if a trait is passing from affected parent to affected offspring, then there is a chance that it will be dominant trait. It will not, second is, it will not skip generation. It will not skip generation, means it will appear in every generation. So these are two most important feature or characters on the basis of which you can identify that a trait is dominant. If one of parent is affected and its offspring is also affected, and it throughout pedigree it is not skipping generation, then there are fair chance that this trait will be dominant. So how will you identify recessive trait? In case of recessive trait, unaffected parents, so I am making that pedigree here. So this offspring is affected. Here you will see both of its parents are unaffected. So you can, by looking at this, you can say that it is not dominant, because in case of dominant, one of parent must be affected. If a son or daughter is affected, then one of parent must be affected. So here two parents are unaffected and offspring is affected. That means what it shows? It shows they both are heterozygous. For example, capital A, capital A, capital A, capital A, and capital A, small a, capital A, small a. Here comes small a, small a. So it is homozygous. Now it is affected. So in case of recessive trait, it in most of cases it is transmitted from unaffected, that are heterozygous, unaffected parents to affected offsprings, although it is also transmitted from affected parents to affected offspring. But here in a pedigree, in a whole pedigree, you will find any line, any clade where it is transmitted from unaffected parents to son, and the son, or you can say daughter, is affected. Then you can say that it is a recessive trait. Second is, it will skip generation. So you will find in a pedigree there will be a generation when it is not appearing, and then in next generation it appears suddenly. So it skips generation. So these are the main differences between dominant and recessive trait. On the basis of these traits, you can identify very quickly and easily that a pedigree is showing a dominant trait or recessive trait. In addition to this, in recessive trait, you will find when there is a mating or marriage between related persons, When there is a mating between related persons, then there's a trait appears suddenly. Then trait appears suddenly. For example, when there is a meeting between a related person, so suppose this woman marries a man and they have a girl child. So when there is a meeting between this and this, both of them are related because they have common grandparents. So when there is a meeting between related person, suddenly trait will appear. Because if any trait that is running in a family, then there are fair chance that both will be heterozygous for that. And if they are heterozygous, then their offspring will be affected. So when there is a meeting between related person and both the person that are related and that are mating are unaffected and their offspring are affected, then you can say that then trait must have been recessive trait. So this is difference between dominant and recessive trait. Dominant trait, there will always be affected parents and it will not skip generation. So here unaffected parent can also have affected children and it will skip a generation. When there is a meeting between related person, trait appears.